I I came to Canada just under 2 years ago, um, and here I've started working with students to co-create learning and teaching. And I thought it would be very nice for me to briefly share with you my experiences in the in an English university, and also that my experience in a Canadian university here. So hence the title of my presentation. Students as partners in course redesign, two examples from English and Canadian university. I'm working at Toronto Metropolitan University. We used to be called Ryerson University until April last year. Now, in this talk, I'm hoping that in 10 minutes, I'll be able to cover everything, and I will cover my own take on what faculty-student partnership is, or to use the English slang, what staff-student partnership in learning is. And then I will cover the simple project at Loughborough University in Leicestershire, and then talk about the projects that I'm doing now here in Toronto. And then offer 3 lines of reflections and observations on both experiences. Now, when I joined Loughborough University in 2011, the Maths Department at the Maths Education Center had got some funding, some money from the National HE STEM program to redesign 2 courses. And the 2 courses were complex variables and vector spaces. And at the time, staff-student partnership was becoming a big area for research. And so I decided to focus my whole PhD thesis on staff-student partnership. But one definition that I find quite relevant to our discussion when talking about partnership and teaching is the definition that I have on this particular slide that you see here, slide number 3, that student-faculty partnership is a collaboration, it's a reciprocal process, which involve participants who contribute equally, although not necessarily in the same way, to pedagogical intervention. Now, and I mentioned this definition because in the book that you see on the slide, they describe some of the work that we did at Loughborough University, and they mentioned our names, my name and my supervisor's name, and I thought I'll share this definition with you. However, personally, I see staff-student partnership as going beyond pedagogical intervention. It encompasses all the things that we include students in order to enhance their learning experience from the first year to the time that they graduate. All those collaborations that we get the students involved could be termed as staff-student partnership. And if you're using the North American terminology, then you call this as faculty-student partnership. Now, in England, at Loughborough University, as I said, we had a simple project, which I will share with you very soon. I will share the link, URL link to the project with you very soon in the chat. But the reason why the simple project was conceived, because we had low student engagement with a course called, or a module called vector spaces, and another module called complex variables. And also when the students transitioned from the first year to the second year, where these 2 courses were taught, the students did find it quite difficult to engage with the content of the material that were being taught. So the Maths department decided that they had to do something about it. And one of the ways that they wanted to do something about these issues was to get students involved in redesigning the courses and to get students involved in creating a peer-assisted learning scheme, and hoping that the students will then engage more with the courses. Now, you will see in the next slide that at the top of the slide, I've got a link there, and I will try and put a link in the chat for you to access the website where the simple project is hosted. And I thought by doing it this way, beyond this workshop, you'll be able to go back to the website and find out a bit more about a simple project, because it was situated in mathematics, and it was a partnership where academic staff and students were working together over a period of time. It was about 2 or 3 months during the summer holidays in 2011 that they worked to produce material to ensure that in the following academic year, starting in September 2011, the students were engaging more with the complex variables and the vector spaces modules. Now, so what were the outputs from the simple project? Well, as I said before, the students produced at the time what we called screencast. Now, remember that we didn't have Zoom at the time. We didn't have the Teams at the time. So what they were doing is that they were video recording the screen, the computer screen, and annotating examples. And you'll see one example very soon. But you can see, you can tell now or see that we've come a long way, right? We've come a long way. Now we've got Zoom, we've got Microsoft Teams and other tools that enables us to produce something similar to screencast. But screencast, of course, I suspect is now condemned to history. But the students also produced lecture notes, and they produced tutorial problem sheets. And as I said, we had a peer assessment learning scheme, and they also produced materials to be used in those sessions. We hired some students as prior leaders, and they ran the sessions every week through the semesters in which the courses were taught. Now, here on this slide here is an example of a screencast that the student produced. Now, this was a video recording, and as they spoke through solving this particular example problem, they annotated the example. But now in 2023, you can do this quite easily using Microsoft Teams or using Zoom or whichever meeting platform that you use. And so while this was very novel at the time, I guess we have better ways of producing this material nowadays. Now, so here in Toronto, fast forward to 2021, I've arrived here as an assistant professor, and my work is mainly researching, learning, and teaching in undergraduate mathematics. And I'm the only professor here who focuses on education research. Everybody else is a pure mathematician. And I was lucky enough to be awarded 14,000 Canadian dollars to involve students in a partnership to research the shared learning outcomes of every topic that we teach with students, and to see and to evaluate how that impacts on the student achievement. I work with students also to formulate assessment policy. And so we did the weightings of the various components of assessment. We, instead of having a top-down approach, we get the students to make decisions about what the weightings should be. We get them to produce assessment items that we can use in class informally. And that seems to be going very well. And like I said, the teaching fellowship project, the goal is that I will continue to make partnership something that can be embedded in the culture of this institution where I'm currently working. Now, I'll show you another example where I'm working with students to create a textbook. As you probably will know, unlike the United Kingdom, here in North America, the teaching is textbook driven. All the courses that we teach, everything has to be based on a textbook. And so I am working with the students to co-author a textbook, and I'll show you an example of what we've done so far. On this slide here is a prototype of a textbook that we are producing on a platform called Pretext. And I have to say that much of the coding and typing is all being done by Liam, one of my first year undergraduate students. He's studying engineering, mechanical engineering, but he's doing a lot of the coding. I'm conceptualizing the idea, and and having a discussion with him. We sit down every week. We meet on Fridays, and I pass on all the ideas and the notes, and he will go away and code on pretext to try to produce the textbook. And the idea here is that once we've got this prototype, we will then produce a multivariable calculus textbook going forward into the future. But we are working quite well, and he's being supported as best as I can. Now, so what are my reflections so far? I think when back in the UK, when we had a simple project, students and professors were very committed, and they were heavily invested. Everybody was there every day throughout the week. There was discussions about what we're doing, and that was very good. The students who were involved, they took part in the project for altruistic reasons. But on this side of the Atlantic, what I am observing is that you don't get a lot of buy-in from other faculty members, and also often the students are in because of the financial rewards that we give them in terms of the wages, and I think that is important. I don't know, for those of you who have already spoken, the partnerships that you may have had, I suspect you may have rewarded some of your students, but here and in Loughborough, we did pay the students. We gave them salaries and wages. But the difference I see between the students here and back in the UK is that on this side here, if you're not paying, then they are not going to get involved. And I think that's quite important to note. And finally, I want to say that sustainability of a partnership is quite difficult. My supervisor, who conceived the simple project, has retired more than 3 years now, and the partnership within the department at Loughborough, Maths department at Loughborough University, whether it is continuing into the future is uncertain. So I think you can be as enthusiastic as you want about this partnership, but unless it's embedded in the departmental culture or the university culture, then once people move on, things cannot come to a halt. And I think we need to bear in mind when we are designing these partnerships. So this is where I'm going to end my presentation. And on this slide here, I've got some references that you may want to follow up. The work that we did at Loughborough is published in a number of places that you can see on the slide that is being shown now. And the faculty guide that I showed you at the beginning is also at the top of the slide. And thank you for inviting me, and thank you for listening. I hope that this is helpful to you and informative as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis, for a very interesting talk. Just briefly, you mentioned that paying the students. So far, my student partners were not paid. They were just altruistic. But for the next year, I have applied for internal funding. I'm not sure whether I'm going to get it.